Your Holiness, how wonderful to see you again. And I'd like to welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us from time zones around the world. My name is Nancy Lindborg. I'm the president and CEO of the United Institute of Peace, which is a nonpartisan, independent national institute founded by the US Congress 36 years ago, dedicated to preventing and resolving violent conflict around the world. And I'm honored to welcome you to an important conversation today on conflict, COVID, and compassion in partnership with the Office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Since 2015, I have had the remarkable opportunity to travel to Dharamsala each year with a small group of simply extraordinary young peace builders, 20 of whom are with us here for this conversation. Each of them is a part of the USIP Generation Change Fellows Network, and each of them have grown up in and around some of the worst conflicts around the world: Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Somalia, Venezuela, and each of them, in the face of violence and anger and hopelessness, each has chosen to be a peace builder in their own community. Each has chosen hope. And every year, we've had the opportunity to have a conversation with His Holiness on how to maintain the inner peace that enables you to build outer peace. How do you maintain that compassion and resilience? This year, unfortunately, we're not able to come to Dharamsala because of the pandemic. And it's a time when this issue seems more urgent than ever. We're watching the world struggle with the global pandemic, and we're seeing how people are often alone, they're isolated and afraid, they're losing loved ones. The pandemic is laying bare some of the inequity and injustice in too many countries. And we're seeing how COVID, particularly in conflict countries, is increasing hunger, upheaval, violence, and repression. So this conversation is more urgent than ever. We're so grateful, Your Holiness, for this opportunity to have yet another conversation with you on how to maintain that inner compassion and resilience. The next hour will be a question and answer session. First, I, Nancy, will ask several questions, and then I will ask 4 of our Generation Change Fellows to ask you questions. Our audience can follow the conversation on Twitter with hashtag Dalai Lama USIP. So let's get started. Your Holiness, it is so wonderful to see you again. Thank you for having this conversation with us this evening. So I'll get started with question number 1. We first met in 2015, and we discussed building a partnership based on our shared vision of a world without violent conflict. This is the vision that animates the U.S. Institute of Peace, and you often talk about the 21st century being the century to end violent conflict. How do you think we're doing 20 years into this century? Are we on track? And what should we all be doing to make sure we stay on track? That's my question.
Okay. Thank you. Since many years, you come with a group of young people. So I always remember. So I very much appreciate your interest or your sort of effort. Thank you. Now, I feel world, they compare the previous century and even within this century, I think early part and later part, there are differences. Early part, we very much sort of interest or believe military power. So it is spent a lot of money, and the scientists, their brilliant brain use how to make destructive weapon. Now that way of thinking, I think diminishing, because firstly, our experience and previous century, First World War, Second World War, and then including use nuclear weapon. Now, after Second World War, a number of years, people say Third World War. Now that kind of thinking, now I think disappear. And meantime, I always say, telling people, look, European Union, the spirit of European Union, in early part of the previous century, these European countries, and especially like France and Germany, they are truly sort of arch enemy, fighting, killing. Then the very leader of these two nations, Adenauer of Germany, German Chancellor, and then de Gaulle, French leader, these two, then they create the European Union. So since the European Union developed, then at least the last few decades among these members of European Union, never killing each other. Then also, you see, gradually, you see, the people realize nuclear weapon, you see, too dangerous. So the people, you see, start work denuclearization step by step. So I feel the previous century, we, I think, very much excited about the material technology. It's just so impressed. So you see, people, you see, much pay attention about the technology, including also build a nuclear weapon, these things. Then later part of 20th century, that thinking gradually reduced. As I mentioned earlier, European Union spirit developed. So I feel, I have the view, see, the early part of 20th century or previous century, we too much emphasis about the material thing, technology thing. Now gradually, you see, we become more human being. So, you see, basic human nature, as some scientists say, we are social animal. Any social animal, the sense of concern of their community by nature, because without their community, individual cannot survive. So we human being, social animal. As soon as we're born, you see, our life entirely depend on our mother's care, and then mother also, without their neighbor, one parent, difficult to manage. So that's the human nature. We are a social animal. So by nature, we have this sense of community and also the loving kindness each other. Then the very basis, as soon as we're born, without any sort of introduction or knowledge, or who is that person who take us and give us milk, mother. So without any introduction, as soon as born, you see, we totally relying on that person, mother. And mother side also, you see, taking care as soon as born. And by nature, milk, mother's milk. So that's the very nature. So I think we can say, for survival, more altruistic attitude, taking care of other. So on this planet, very small insect, I don't know, but otherwise you see those fly and birds and animals, all these survived with sense of taking care. Firstly, their own children, their own community. So these nothing to do with religion, biological factor, nature. So then I usually also feel and also express all religion of human being. So all human beings' religion, you see, talking about best human quality, that is human love. So all major religious tradition, in spite different place, different time, different situation, and eventually in different philosophical view, but all carry same message of love. All religion. So therefore, we human nature is a more compassionate nature. Now in the past, we too much sort of also pay attention about material or technology, these things. Now, I feel we human being, generally speaking, we human being becoming more mature. So now we pay more attention, including scientists now paying more attention about our inner value, inner peace. So now I have strong view in our existing education system must include education about our inner world. Besides, you see, education about our physical condition, including our brain, then mind, emotion should include part of our education. Because emotion, very important in our life. The positive emotion give us inner peace, inner strength. Destructive emotion is to destroy our inner peace and eventually our physical health also destroy by too much anger, too much fear. These are destructive emotion. So now, time come, we have to pay more attention about our mind, about our emotion. So this should include in education about health. So these also the description about emotion should not consider a part of religion, but simply academic subject and related with our physical health. Mental health, more peaceful mind, peaceful emotion, automatically, you see, the immune system, our body, and including blood pressure, all become very normal. Too much anxiety, too much anger, too much fear, then the blood pressure increase, and all sort of physical normal element then become abnormal. So therefore, these knowledge should take as a the academic subject the physical health, like that. We too much, and we very much sort of taking care about hygiene of physical. Now we should include hygiene of emotion. That's very important. That also, according to Indian tradition, secular way, and not related with religion, whether religious-minded or even anti-religion. That's okay. That's private business. But as a human being, you see, we need some knowledge about our system of our emotion, then try to try to get peace of mind, like that. So now, young people, young student, you are beginning, or so I think start real life. When you are young, mother take care, not much problem. Then join school, even sort of college, these things, there's not much sort of pay attention about our inner peace. So materialistic sort of education, you see, bring us more anxiety or sense of competition, like that. So the education without these inner quality, then better education, more anxiety, more frustration. So now, in our education, should include education about our inner peace, inner mind, inner world. So now, we, because of the 21st century, I think with help of scientists, particularly scientists about the brain, with their help, in education field, we should include education about how to build inner peace. And through individual inner peace, then peace, community, and then eventually whole humanity. You see, through that kind of education, then we really can develop peaceful world. So, as I mentioned earlier, the previous century, we pay much attention about the weapon, these things. Now, we should pay more attention about our inner peace so that genuine world peace can achieve. So my number one commitment is I'm a human being. I also have all these emotion. So with clear sort of as a recognize some of the emotion are very destructive, some of the emotion are very, very good. So with that knowledge, you see, trying to reduce destructive emotion and increase constructive emotion. Now here, according the quantum physics, see, as a result of our discussion, I got the impression the quantum physicist, you see, there is also the differences, appearance and deeper level of reality. So all these destructive emotions such as anger, attachment, fear, all these destructive emotion very much based on appearances, not deeper level. So deeper level, then some quantum physicists, they say deeper level, not like appearances. So appearances, quantum physics, you see, people, some, also they, as a student of quantum physics, they realize things does not exist as appears. Then all those destructive emotion very much based on appearances. So the antidote of that also the emotion go deeper level, then nothing exists as appears. So this, the ancient Indian Buddhist also school of thought also mentioned that most of the destructive emotion very much based on grasping the objective, because object, something independently exists. So something good, attachment, something bad, hatred, anger. So these are appearances. Deeper level, now quantum physics, they say, deeper level, these not exist as appears. At deeper level, all are particle. We cannot sort of pinpoint. And then ultimately depend on also mental attitude, the observer side. So long observer there, and kaso ta tanya cheba kasre.
Using language.
Oh, so identify like that, then these emotions come. So deeper level, nothing as appears. So all the destructive emotion based on appearances. So once we realize these appearances does not exist in deeper level. So these, now some quantum physicists mentioned that. And of course, some my own conclusion. Perhaps I have some influence of Buddhist philosophy. All our destructive emotion, you see, very much based on kasa, grasping things, grasping good and attachment. Things bad, or grasping bad, then fear, anger. So the Buddhist tradition, Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist psychology, you see, mentioned things does not exist as appears. So the very basis of negative emotion no longer there. Things just mere designation. Like Nagarjuna and Ajanta Kirti in their writing clearly mentioned. So I myself, as a Buddhist student, you see, learn these things and practice, implement, or really they also they're very, very helpful to maintain peace of mind. So now some scientists also now showing interest like that. So my number one commitment is promotion of, the inner peace. Through inner peace, world peace can achieve. Firstly, individual inner peace, then family level inner peace, then community level through inner peace, genuine peace. Then through education, and also through use some technology information. Through that way, you see, we can teach, we can share these deeper knowledge, deeper experience. Ancient time, you see, different continent, different country, or different sort of tradition. So now, world become smaller, much smaller. So we can easily exchange information. So my number one commitment is try to promote peace of mind, or more compassionate mind. Entire 7 billion human beings, irrespective whether believer or non-believer, simply they're taking care about the inner peace. And as I mentioned earlier, I describe the subject of kasa.
Emotion, psychology, psychology,
Oh,
philosophy.
also the hygiene of physical. Similarly, hygiene of emotion. So my number one commitment is try to share as much as I can. So the real troublemaker is not outside, but inside. If the inside troublemaker, suspicion, fear, anger, these, if you can maintain or keep quiet, then you surrounded by your enemy, troublemaker. Instead of anger, fear, you may sort of develop a sense of concern of this troublemaker, how ignorance, how sort of also the short-sightedness, like that. So this is my number one commitment. Number two commitment, promotion of religious harmony. It is unthinkable now in the name of religion, it's a fighting and killing. Just next, our neighbor country, Syria, Iran, And then Afghanistan, Pakistan, these also sometimes, you see, even within Muslim, the Shia and Sunni, sometimes you see difficult situation. So same Quran, same Allah, it's the same sort of daily prayer, but then fighting. So my number 2 commitment is try to promote religious harmony. Look, India, all major religious traditions live together over 1,000 years. Generally, very harmonious. Different sort of philosophical sort of views and some debate. That is even within Buddhism, within Nalanda tradition. There are a number of different sort of philosophical view and a lot of debate through centuries. So there's intellectual sort of differences. Very helpful is to open our mind, just to believe one thing, then our mind, our intelligence remain like that. It's a different philosophy, different tradition, then our brain open and see. Like it's a garden, one flower, one kind of flower is not much attractive. A garden, not a lot of different sort of flower, different color, different smell, different size, then looks very attractive. So world, now India, I think the human garden through 1,000 years, there's a lot of different flower, with different color, different taste, like that. So since India is over 3,000 years, you see these different religious traditions live together, so it is possible, religious harmony. So I committed. I think also the Indian Muslim, because they always, you see, since their childhood, they already know there are different religions. So they take for granted different religious tradition. Whereas those countries, only one religion. And now even Muslim country, even Shia, then in their eye, Sunni, something different. And of course, Buddhism and Hinduism, something different. So now today, world become one small human community. So exchange or visit Muslim sort of brother, sister, come to different places and then sit together and exchange. I have, I developed one sort of Muslim, international Muslim conference, mainly headed by Ladakhi Muslim. Originally, I suggested, and they arranged. So eventually, from time to time, now these days, the illness that is isolated everybody. So I think now, eventually this will change. So, so you see, from time to time, religious conference, and very useful. And people remain a little bit distant each other. Then had the impression that's different religion. it is different than our religion, then some kind of little distance. That's the source of problem, like that. So
Thank you, Your Holiness.
I always say, I said, look, India is the example. All major world religious traditions live together. Occasionally, some problem here and there. That sometimes mainly politicians, you see, causing some problem. But basically, India, I think, wonderful.
Your Holiness, thank you. I'd like to ask one more question before turning to our youth peace builders. And that is, today is International Youth Day. And we know that more than half of the world's youth population live in conflict-affected countries. And our partnership over the past 5 years has been based on a shared conviction that youth are absolutely vital for building a more peaceful world into the future. So, Your Holiness, my question for you is, how have young people inspired you personally? And do you have specific advice for them on how to create a more peaceful world? Anything in addition to what you've just said?
I think whole, the atmosphere, this planet, now firstly, economy, global economy, no national boundary. And then more communicate. So younger generation, you see, come through that kind of situation is more broad-minded. In ancient time, more isolate. My own experience, when we were in Tibet, only Buddhism, and to some extent some Muslim. Otherwise, we ourselves isolated. Then come to India as a refugee, more opportunity meeting with people. Then you see these, your view, much sort of broader, very useful. So now younger generation, generally because of these wider contact and information, so I think generally speaking, the younger generation's mind is much more open, much more broad-minded. So I feel, and then as I mentioned earlier, the event in 20th century, now 21st century, now humanity becoming more mature, more realistic. In ancient time, a little bit isolate, then narrow-minded. So now things are, I feel, much better, I feel. Okay.
Yes, let me turn to the wonderful youth peace builders who have joined us this evening and this morning. And the first is Lorena Gomez, who you'll recognize, she was with us last year. And she's from Colombia, where she works on resilience and dialogue through travel and storytelling. Lorena.
Right.
Tashidalek, Your Holiness.
I'm
very happy to see you again. Your Holiness, I want you to know that our time together last October really touched my heart and is now helping me redefine how people in my country think about peace. Normally, we only see it as ceasefire or as a political issue. But now, through webinars and press articles, I'm encouraging others to reflect more about our inner values and to cultivate peace of mind. So, Your Holiness, you have faced significant uncertainty and upheaval in your life. And
국리만 붙여요. 그래서.
Oh, yes.
정의
I think here,
정의시 말해.
ka,
정의시 말해. 단대 제시지.
yes.
저신이.
That's your question.
I continue. Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to the question. So, yeah, so I was saying you have faced significant uncertainty and upheaval in your life. And my question is, according to the coronavirus context, how have you coped with uncertainty in your life? And what advice can you give people on how to maintain their peace of mind when they are losing their jobs, their businesses, and their loved ones?
Because this illness, 나서 name kasa, ka,
Now, COVID.
kasa,
COVID. 나서 되는 COVID.
COVID.
Now.
COVID. Oh. Now, this something, of course, unfortunate. Many people, including many institutions and scientists, they are, you see, making experiment. You see, try to find medicine. But overall, as I already mentioned, as also the Buddhist literature mentioned, so long destructive emotion inside their life always face some problem. So it is quite nature. So eventually, your sort of the mind, through also through understand the reality, then which basis of all destructive emotion then reduce. So the problem, outside problem, you see, even Buddha cannot remove. Jesus Christ also cannot remove. So long, all spiritual leaders, then you see, they mentioned inner world, the theistic religion, like Christianity, Judaism, and Muslim, and so on. You see, they emphasize faith here, and try to tolerance, forgiveness, contentment, like that. Like Buddhism, you see, the more philosophical sort of field. As I mentioned earlier, quantum physics, nothing exists as appears. So the reality not independently exist. All are mental projection. So that really very, very helpful. You see, when you face problem, not running after problem, but look inner mind, then outside thing, no matter what complicated, but you can keep peace of mind. So that much, according to my own experience, no matter what sort of external things or situation, but your own mind, through practice of shunyata or emptiness, and through practice of altruism, you can keep peace of mind. Those follower of a theistic religion think God. That also, you see, no matter how complicated situation, you can keep their peace of mind. Then, according Buddhism, within Buddhism, according Nalanda tradition, you see, not only just relying on faith, but use reason. So we call analytical meditation. Extremely useful. So I practice these things. So my life now, 86-year-old, whole my life, you see, grow in complicated situation. But I can keep peace of mind because of these knowledge how to keep inner peace. And then one, I think, useful thing is the Buddhism. According to Buddhism, the all sentient being are mother sentient being. We usually describe mother sentient being. And then in any case, realistically speaking, 7 billion human beings are our brothers, sisters. All are the way to born, the way to go, all the same. So while alive, you see, destructive emotion there, constructive emotion there, all destructive emotion ultimately based on ignorance, constructive emotion based on reason. So with this knowledge, as an academic subject, secular way, I'm trying to share 7 billion human beings how to keep inner peace. Ultimately, the compassionate mind. Basic human nature is, since we are social animal, so compassion is part of our mind. Like that, okay. So I believe eventually 7 billion human beings can be more compassionate through reason. Okay.
Thank you, Your Holiness. We'll turn to our second Generation Change Fellow, Samya Agarwal, who is from India. She was with us last year in 2019, and she is the co-founder of Youth for Peace International. Samya.
Tashitale, Your Holiness.
Tashitale.
It's an honor meeting with you today, virtually. After meeting with you in Dharamshala in 2019, I have been practicing compassion, not just with others, but also with myself. Your Holiness, you have taught us all that all religions teach us to love our neighbors and to strive for justice. My question to you is, how can we practice compassion with people who are abusers or perpetrators of injustice? Thank you.
As Buddha, you see, mentioned 4 noble truths, suffering and cause of suffering. So he paid more attention about cause of suffering. Okay, suffering already there. Now we do not want this suffering. So the suffering will not go, just disappear. Since the suffering due to cause, so we must pay more attention about cause. So those people who create problem to other people, and don't care about truth or moral principle. Actually, they are committing, source of the negative commitment because of the negative karma. So in future, they have to face, as the second noble truth. We committed then first noble truth, suffering, we cannot avoid. So therefore, those people who committed negative karma eventually bring more suffering on themselves. So there is more reason to feel sympathy and compassion. So, and then also, you see, people who create more problem to other. I think on the world, in world history, like Hitler, and then some other sort of, cruel leaders. People always consider something very bad. So then, as a practitioner, you see these, instead of sort of a negative feeling, we must develop sense of concern of these people. According to Indian tradition, we believe life after life, Atma. So different physical, different place, but same self. So this life, one life time creates certain sort of karma. The consequences even within lifetime, or if not, then next life. So we have more sense of concern or compassion to these people who committed negative action. And then also Shantadawa says, your enemy is best teacher of you. You can learn, you see, through their action. If everybody, you see, friendly attitude, then no opportunity practice of patience. After some troublemaker there, then there's the that creates best opportunity to practice of patience. Okay. Like that. So Shantadeva say, your enemy is best teacher of yourself. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Your
Thank you.
Holiness. Our next questioner is Abdiweli Waberi. He was with us in 2018, and he works on peace building through dialogue in his home country of Somalia. Abdiweli?
Your Holiness, it's an honor to see you again. Our dialogue in 2018 has continued to stay with me and helped me maintain inner peace since then to build peace back in home Somalia. Your Holiness, while leadership plays an important role in the fight against the coronavirus, and pandemic has become a global issue, some argue that COVID-19 weakens our democracy since governments are taking cruel actions to combat the virus. So, Your Holiness, my question is, do you see different requirements for leadership in normal times and in times of crisis? Thank you.
Yes, now worldwide certain problem. So now, time gone, my nation, my community, that's a part of the humanity. So now humanity facing the problem, so they thinking different nationality, different religion, I think I briefly mentioned. So now that thinking, in ancient time, your own community, your own nation. Now whole world, as I mentioned earlier, 7 billion human beings, the problem, these new, these are facing 7 billion human beings. So now time come, we must work together. Think about humanity, not thinking my nation, my community. The basic humanity, or because of the humanity, 7 billion human beings, they are happy, overcome these problems, then each of nation, each of people get maximum benefit. So now everything, not like ancient time. Ancient time, we Tibetan in our own area. So small community. I think like you, your own country, your own area, you see, more or less isolate and self-sufficient. Now today's world, something different. So we have to think about humanity. That's my view, and I always say, share with other people. Okay, thank you.
Your Holiness, do you have time for 1 or 2 more questions from our youth leaders?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. Then our next questioner is Faraz Khair from Syria, who works to deliver humanitarian assistance to Syrian refugees. Faraz.
Thank you, Nancy. Hello, Your Holiness. It's a pleasure meeting you again, even virtually this time. Our last meeting was inspiring. I have learned a lot from how you accumulate and spread knowledge. Your Holiness, the globe is currently sharing a common challenge, COVID-19. My question is, how can we use this distress as a chance to unite humanity, encourage peace, and even help humans understand the suffering they cause for others? Thank you.
You see, difficult situation, in a way, helpful, you see, to bring unity. Now, for example, we Tibetan, when we were in Tibet, different part of Tibet, you see, sometimes you see there's certain sort of say, feeling of we and they, like that. Once we reach India as a refugee, now very basis of we and they now no longer there. We have to think a common interest. So, difficult situation, you see, in a way, creates, you see, also the more inner value and unity and work together. So now to the world, there are different sort of also illness, and then one serious matter is global warming. So according to some scientists, now within next few decades, the global warming reach such a level then many of the rivers will dry. And then eventually there is, like Afghanistan, when we passing through air, we can see the ancient time, there are number of lakes, rivers. Now, most of them, you see, reduce. It become small stream or small lake, and the otherwise bare land to desert. So that's according to our scientists, not the religious prediction. The scientists now they say global warming, each decade warmer. Even Dharamsala is my over 60 years I stay here. So early part, some more snow, then gradually less. So this indicates the sign of global warming. So now, while we still human facility for our life still there, and we must work together and share each other and think about humanity. That's important. So there are a lot of problems. Now time come to share each other. Then among them, this global level, rich and poor people always remain. Richer, making more money. So this gap, rich and poor, international level and national level. Now this gap, this I think we must pay more attention to reduce this gap. Okay.
Our next questioner, Your Holiness, is Hadi Kufala. She was with us in 2018. She's from Libya, where she's a human rights activist and journalist. Hadi?
Hello, Your Holiness. It's such an honor being here with you again. And as I learned from you in 2018, that we can get over all of these internal conflict consequences by believing in power of compassion. And now, as you know, the displaced people are suffering greatly with the COVID-19. And these people are physically and emotionally affected by war and health crisis. So my question is, from your experience with displacement, how can displaced people take care of themselves spiritually?
Ka. Kare. Kare. Oh. Now here, according to my own experience, the thinking oneness of 7 billion human beings. I said, that's very helpful. When I left our own country, India, another human community. Then of course, we have 1,000 years, some special relations. With that feeling, oneness of human being, when I visit Europe, say color, shape, their face, and particularly their nose, you see, there are little differences, but emotional level, same. Mental level, due to certain cultural heritage, little differences, otherwise basically same. So the sense of oneness of 7 billion human beings It's very useful wherever you go. Still human land. So if we Tibetan, you see, I said too much sort of emphasis, we Tibetan something, I said unique, then lost our own country and come to a different country, then feel something different. But the the Buddhist sort of the terminology, something we usually call mother-centered being. All sentient beings, and including all also the human being on this planet, we are, you see, a mother-centered being. So that very helpful is it to think oneness of 7 billion human beings. Small differences, that's on a superficial level. Deeper level, we are same. Okay.
So, Your Holiness, last question is from Hassam Meneja from Tunisia.
Tunisia?
No.
Tunisia.
Yes.
Your Holiness, it's an honor to see you again. Our dialogue in 2019 has been a remarkable event, and your words have been resonating with me ever since, especially on the plight for human rights, democracy, and freedom for all. Your Holiness, with COVID-19, we have seen governments exploit the crisis to further their own agendas, whether enforcing authoritarian measures or cracking down on civil society and limiting the spaces they're operating in. My question is, what advice would you give to peace builders who face more restrictions and authoritarianism in the conflict-sensitive areas they must navigate? Thank you.
Tunisia.
Tunisia. Now, I feel there is a real gap. Say, mental level, the thinking, old way of thinking, we. Then the situation, the reality, much change. So that's, I think, source of problem. In ancient time, you see, your own nation, more or less isolated, and think your own country. Now today, that's just my nation, and including my party, my group, and eventually, you see, dictator. You see, these are according the ancient sort of situation, there's something relevant. Now, today's world, no longer that reality. So, we have to think we rather than I. So, Tunisia, like Tunisia, I think we need wider contact with other people. Now, including tourists visit different place, different culture, different language. And then meantime, you see, through education, we 7 billion human beings are same human being who live on this same planet. And as I already mentioned, global economy and all these now, old thinking, just we, I, that gone. Now the new reality, we 7 billion human beings have to live together, and under that circumstances, just sort of exclusive sort of right or thinking about your own community, your own nation. within one country due to different religious faith or little sort of differences or different part of your own country, Tunisia, a different part. You see, there are some differences. Now, these are minor. Okay. Now, time come, we have to think more, because wider perspective than not just thinking your own community. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Your Holiness, thank you so much for joining us this evening and for sharing your wisdom, especially during these difficult times. This was an extraordinary opportunity to be able to renew this dialogue with you. I want to thank Your Holiness's audiovisual team, Tenzin Takla and Seton Samdup. They have been extraordinary partners with us for this evening. The miracle of technology of bringing people in from all around the world. Thank you also to our good friends in the Office of His Holiness, Seton and Chimi. I want to make a special note, Your Holiness, and that is the very first week of my working at USIP in 2015, I had the remarkable opportunity to meet you when you were here in Washington. This is my last week at USIP. And so having the opportunity for this conversation with you tonight is a wonderful and heartening bookend to my time at an exceptional institution working with exceptional people like these peace builders. We're so grateful for the partnership with you and with your office. I want to give a special thanks to the USIP Vice President for Applied Conflict Transformation, David Yang. David is with us here this evening. He will be carrying on this remarkable partnership, and we look forward to continuing the work together. And finally, I want to thank our Fearless Generation Change fellows. I want to thank them for continuing on with their extraordinary work, with their courage and their compassion, despite a lot of fear, a lot of despair in the world. They are the light of the future, and we thank them enormously. It is so uplifting to have a chance to spend this evening with them and Your Holiness with you. Thank you again. We're very grateful.
As I already mentioned, time passes, situation changing. So we need new thinking, new outlook. The things are changing. Our thinking still remain old way of thinking. Then it automatically creates your thinking and reality. So, youth people, you better sort of have the equipment to think, new look, easily accept new reality. Old people, I think generally like me, old people, then old thinking. My case, little bit exception. Age old, but thinking, I think quite realistic and quite young. So the young people, you are the, I'll say, generation who make contribution for the new world. So now time gone, you should not think old way. You should accept a new reality. Basically, as I mentioned earlier, oneness of 7 billion human beings. Then global warming, these things are now new thing. So the younger generation now should open your mind. Although no third eye, but two eyes should open. So for that reason, this kind of discussion, you may get some new idea, and also I get some new idea. So very useful. So you, since last, I think, several years, you organize, you see, because the youth, right? Also, I think annually meeting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I very much appreciate. Now in future, also, you see, please you organize now this kind of meeting continuously. Okay.
We will do so.
Thank you.
David Yang will work with Kalden Lodo to continue the partnership.
Thank you. So, there is some contradiction. My age, as I mentioned earlier, you see, 86, old, but my face looks younger. and similarly, with this face behind there, my brain even younger. I always think more realistic way. So therefore, see, like this kind of meeting, I also learn something useful, and you also, you see, learn. Now we continuously work for humanity, no matter how big, small contribution for better world. It is our responsibility. Thank you. Thank you. See you again next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.